That will be my first breath. My strings, the counter puppets here now. Then I'll walk on out of here. I'll make sure nothing happens here. Follow your fingers, your hands shaking me all over. Something wants to place now. White, stereotype pedestal. I'm loud, young. I make sure nothing happens here. Follow those fingers, when it all comes down, I can show you something you will not believe. When it all comes down, we're gonna see a real masterpiece. Touchdown takes a life to make one. With a grip, but I was caught inside of it. Sure, you made an impression, Russia. I'll make sure nothing happens here. Follow those fingers. I'll make sure nothing happens here. Follow those fingers. I'll make sure nothing happens here. Follow those fingers. I'll make sure nothing happens here. Follow those fingers for me.
What's happening? Benton here. Hey, the music actually stopped playing. I just noticed the length of that track, and that was Donatello from Jawbreaker, the band Jawbreaker. Bivouac, the album, one of my favorites, indeed. I think I bought that used back in college all them years ago. But 303, a big number in my life. Perhaps some of you will know why. Perhaps some of you won't, but that number is associated with my famous ancestor, Mr. Jim Benton, Big Jim Benton. Yep, indeed, Ginger Ridge, indeed. Shout out to Jawbreaker. Well, it's all happening, folks. Thanks for being here. I am grateful for that. I certainly had no desire to go up against OTW News, and I implore you, if you're so inclined, check him out. In some ways, I do this for the replay. In some ways, I know we do have a decent amount of views on the replays. So I'm more than happy to go single digits. Not a big deal. I would probably be over there too, especially with Yurt on the panel. And I almost got jealous. I'm not wired for jealousy, but I'm like, oh, wow. Yurt on the panel. Indeed. One of my favorites. Big fan. Oh, speaking of one of my favorites, boy, that was an awesome live stream over at Chalk Body Outline last night. Let me go ahead and drop that link. I'm catching up on the replay. I haven't quite heard it all yet. But again, those are the OGs of this so-called truth community in many ways, especially with respect to the conspiracies. And if you guys are into conspiracies like I am, you know, the amount of information and topics covered, you're not going to find that anywhere else. You know, I challenge you to find a singular broadcast where that many topics are covered. It's just not going to happen. You know, it is the best, the highest quality level of content in many ways. Let me go ahead and we may play a little bit of that. I'm going to try to keep it short, keep it tight. I may pop over to OTW here and join the panel and rebroadcast here in a bit. I will say that if you noticed my, let me drop that link while I'm still thinking about it. And here's Drew's channel, by the way. That's it there. Conspiracy A to Z, the OOE annual 420 special. Shout out to those folks. And there was a little bit of some confusion with some remarks I had made towards Toilet Bowl Earth. And we'll get into that here in a bit. I need to correct the record, with respect to these events. But I certainly understand how the miscommunication occurred. And like as Ginger Ridge has so astutely observed, I will take all the blame for these matters. Indeed. So I'm sure it was my fault. I agree. He is super annoying about religion. And I will notice he's really backed off on that. So in some ways he has, as far as his need to discuss it so frequently, I will give him a lot of credit for that. And indeed, I have no issues other than just our general personality conflicts. I have no issues. And in fact, I understand how my comments yesterday were misconstrued. So we'll get there. Alan Watts. Yes, Alan Watts. One of my favorites. He has a really good discourse about Jesus, who was Jesus and all of this. We'll probably at some point on the channel replay all of that as well. So let me get to the notes. Oh, real quick, while we're doing plugs, let's check out Kim Before the Storm. He had a very interesting live stream that I'm not sure many people have seen. So I would recommend go check out the replay. It's under his live tab, this arrested for filming in a public courthouse, motion to compel court. I enjoyed that thoroughly. 433 views. So go check him out. Is that on the screen? No, it's not. Let's go ahead and get that on the screen. Yeah, here we go. So that's there for you. Kim putting in work. Hey, you're not a fan of the OTO news stream? Oh, OTW, you mean? Yeah, it's going to get better. And in fact, especially with the amount of reps and the amount of time he's putting in, it's going to get way better. And, I had similar struggles, so-called running the panel or controlling the panel as OTW. And some of that I think is maybe his personality in general. And I have some of that. I'm afflicted with some similar traits. But I've certainly improved. You'll see yesterday I booted Tommy out of here. Not that I wanted to boot Tommy, but I certainly was not going to be able to continue my rant, with Tommy here trying to give a counterpoint to every half sentence that I utter, right? There's no way that was going to happen. Yeah, Alan Watts. Indeed. And good to see you sideways, Stewie. Indeed. Now, I want to get into my notes here. I made copious notes. And I will say this, and this is going to tie into the later parts of the broadcast. Ultimately, I would love a world in which I could broadcast from like 5:30 a.m. Right up until OTW launches his broadcast. And I don't know if you folks are aware, but YouTube actually has a feature where I could actually filter, as I end my broadcast, I could actually filter everyone from the live into OTW News' live, and you could actually have a near seamless transition, from my outro into his intro. And I think in the future, I could see more of those things happening as hopefully these so-called truth communities, these splintered groups, what I view as splintered, smaller niche communities, collaborate more and more and cooperate more and more. But I don't see a lot of cooperation overall. But that's my view of it. Again, Benton here is a full doomer, right? But and I do want to get pretty serious, and I am noted for my authenticity in many ways. I think the people that like to hear me, there's some people have an idea that if I believe it or if I know it to be true, I'll just go ahead and say it much of the time. Yeah, Tommy's great. Thank you, Cleveland. I appreciate that. Yeah, Tommy's great. Except when he's not, right? But thank you. Yeah, Rusty says that's always the move. Well, we have to credit Tommy, though. He certainly he provides the catalyst to keep the stream going sometimes. So I certainly value his contributions. Good to see you, Chuck, in Tennessee. And again, real quick, I got the link posted above to OTW's live stream, which is in progress. I'm not offended if anybody wants to be over there, but and I think OTW did a good job addressing any potential conflicts, in his preamble there. Because I'm certainly not upset or holding a grudge, but I will say, based on the conversations droning on and on yesterday, I was away from my keyboard when he ended his show. I was just eating food. I didn't even know what had happened, and I understand Christos seemed to, he did not appreciate the way that was handled. I don't even really know what happened. Don't really care, to be honest with you. Or I should say, that's not my concern. I would not consider that to be my concern. Um, and I defer to the broadcaster, generally speaking. So I would trust OTW. He's the one putting in the long hours over there. I would trust him to run his broadcast. And if I saw what I consider to be the same mistake repeated over and over and over, I'll certainly give my 2 cents and ask Drew. By the way, I've been critical of Drew in many ways, but then again, shout out to OOE from last night. That's the highest level in these so-called truth communities as far as this style of presentation, in my view. I can only aspire to that level, from an informational standpoint. So kudos. And over time, I may very well have been the biggest fan of that channel. Certainly. Tommy is way more interesting than Talcott. Well, I can address the Talcott stuff, and I've done so in the past, but I don't know how much I want to repeat myself about all of that. But let's get serious for a minute. Your boy's dying. Please, what's more hubristic, by the way, the people who hear me mention these health issues and then just assume that I'm unhealthy. Well, by the way, I'm not even unhealthy. I'm dying from various illnesses, but I'm also healthy at the same time. It's very bizarre. If you interfaced with me in the physical realm, like when I go to Walmart, and I think this shows, especially here in the South, which I don't consider Missouri the South, but it's just as unhealthy, right? These McDonald's eaters, compared to them, I'm very healthy. My skin is clear. I'm underweight, of course, but I'm not obese like most of these whales are. My brain works properly. When I'm not feeling like ass, I have a good level of energy, right? I am actually somewhat physically fit, although that's beginning to go away. My physical strength is going away, but I would encourage the listener, if the listener hears me say all of these things and their brain immediately jumps into problem solving, which is, oh, have you checked out this method, or this person has this channel and they talk about this information, and there's this herb, and there's apple pectin, and on and on and on and on. I would encourage the listener, if that's where they observe their mind going, to pause and take a moment and say, well, wait a minute, why am I going into problem solving? Is it even my duty? Is it even my place in this world to heal Benton metaversally? Okay. Meanwhile, Benton has overcome his psychology. Benton, I have control of my mind. See, I'm where I need to be, perhaps across the board, right? And in some ways, you want to talk about this law of attraction and this manifesting. Part of me loves this, that I'm dying and that my physicality is withering away. Part of me enjoys it because I am an ascetic monk on some level, and I've been a practicing yogi, meaning meditation, for many years. And I lived an I lived an undeniably ascetic lifestyle for many years and enjoyed it. Okay. So now we get into this idea of these so-called truth communities, and this idea that people are going to go back to the land, and some people are on the land, right? And I understand some of what I'm saying will run afoul with some of what Paul talks about, Paul enslaved, which is fine. This is okay in my view. And so it kind of ties back to yesterday's rant and discourse about people believing that they're, traditional family values conservatives, right? But what I've pointed out as well, without the action, that's just people paying lip service, and it's a belief like everything else. And in fact, and I really wish I'd kept up with this. I gave a really good rant one time over on Freedom Growers channel, where I really sliced and diced what I know to be true, which is this mom and apple pie, MAGA family, traditional family values, so-called conservatism, that's been mind control and programming just like the rest of it. It's not that human beings got together and collectively decided, okay, this is the best way to live. The mom stays at home and raises the kids, the dad goes off to work, and a man can pull himself up by his bootstraps and, work hard and get ahead and all of that. No, my assertion is the beast system, especially if you line it up with the writings attributed to Ted Kaczynski, that's what the beast system, that's what benefited the beast system here in the United States at that time. And what we've now seen is that no longer is benefiting the beast system. So the mind control and the programming has moved on to other realms. So what I'm saying is all of that, the MAGA, mom and apple pie, American exceptionalism, traditional family values, that's mind control. And what we see now is that people are no longer practicing that, when in fact they were at one time, debatably, in this country. Those days are over, probably never to return. Now, understand some people are still living that way. But again, there's always exceptions to everything. I would say I see such little evidence of that in the real world. I'm not even going to focus on that. And I don't believe it's helpful to focus on the exceptions in these regards. If I'm speaking generally, of course, there's exceptions to every general statement that comes out of my mouth. And believe me, I'm autistic and pedantic enough. I can speak so specifically that I won't leave any room for critique. Or I would like to trust the audience to be able to access their nuance, their discernment, and their ability to process nuance and to have their intellect fill in the gaps, right? But your boy's dying. Okay, I don't know how long I have, but neither do you. See, you're not promised tomorrow. You assume you're going to be here tomorrow because that's the pattern that has emerged. And most likely, based on that pattern, you will be here tomorrow. But nobody can assure you of that. You could tell me, yeah, I'll be here tomorrow, but you can't assure me of it. You can't ever 100% guarantee me that you're going to wake up tomorrow. Okay. So I don't know how long I have, but neither do you. Okay, so I'm just like you in that regard, but my health is failing. It cannot be fixed. I'm not wizard, okay? I didn't smoke cigarettes and develop lung cancer, right? This is something far, far different. And your boy Benton, if I'm still here talking to you a year from now, I'm going to weigh 100 pounds. I weigh 100, I haven't even weighed recently. I weighed 126 pounds last time I weighed, okay? This is not going to reverse itself. And in fact, I may very well become a breatharian. I may become the only breatharian that Probably I'm going to very soon start fasting for 3 days, and then maybe I'll eat for 2 days, and then I'll fast for another 3 days. Because half of this me feeling like shit some of the time is based on eating food. If I just don't eat, I feel great for the most part. And I can't even express to you just how horrible I felt yesterday. But I feel some kind of, compulsion. It's like inertia. Objects in motion tend to remain in motion. I'm on this streak of live streaming, right? And an OTW is live. I want to go over there and support his broadcast, right? But then this gets back to my crankiness yesterday on OTW's broadcast, which is, look, if I'm adding 25 to his broadcast, and then here's Joe Cool adding nothing, by the way, actually taking, and I want to talk, I should be able to talk without Joe Cool talking over my every half sentence. If you go back and listen to that again, he literally had a comment for every, not sentence I said, every half sentence I said. Well, look, part of my autism is I can't continue to talk while other people are talking. Okay. I don't have ADD. I have the opposite of ADD. I have too much focus. I can't continue to speak while other people are talking. It's insane. And we know he's doing it on purpose. He's coming in and amusing himself. He's foolish. Where's JG when you need him, by the way? Oh, that's right. I ran him off. Joe Cool, you're a fool. You're foolish. And you're playing games, and that's fine. That's your right to do so. But why would I want to go? And now you can say, oh, it's egoic. Yeah, it is egoic. Now, maybe, now how many of that 25 people, I'd say probably 10 of them would have found their way to his broadcast anyway, but I know I'm adding 15 that wouldn't have been there anyway. And I know if I don't say something for too long of a period of time, I notice the numbers start dropping on my broadcast because people want to hear what I have to say to some extent. Okay. And meanwhile, I don't need to come on there and dominate the broadcast, but why does Joe Cool need to come there and literally comment in real time over every single person's half sentence? It's ridiculous. Yeah, and I don't care that he can be a racist all he wants. That's fine with me. I don't have a problem with that. He knows where I'm from. Apparently, he's been to my hometown recently. Yeah. Well, and I don't have a problem with him. My point is, if I'm adding 25 to the broadcast, and if I want to talk for uninterrupted for 120 seconds, I should have that right. And part of this, when I get accused of having broadcasting skill, part of it is I can keep it pretty tight when I need to. Okay. Meanwhile, these other bozos, and I am a bozo, these other bozos, if you actually listen to what they're saying, it's a whole lot of filler words because they're kind of fleshing it out as they go. I've already got what I'm going to say in my mind. See, I'm not smart enough to come on here and make all this up in real time. I already did this broadcast in my head from about 4:30 a.m. to about 6 a.m. I did this entire broadcast in my brain. And then like 10% of the broadcast in my brain will then come out of my mouth into your ears because I'm a human being and I'm limited in that fashion. But, when the day comes, not that I would ever subject myself to this, but when the technology exists where you can just be right in my brain, that's one of the best broadcasts you'll ever hear or experience. But see, I'm so limited in getting these ideas out. But let's go into Joe Cool's brain with his foolish ideas. See, he can't hang with me. Now he can hang with me because of my autism and my, I'm not so good with the back and forth in the panels. And when you get a bunch of people trying to talk at once, it's like my kryptonite. But discourse for discourse, he can't hang with my level of ideas. He just can't. He doesn't have the tools. Okay. Anyway, that's all I want to say about that with the Joe Cool stuff. And get on my level, Joe Cool. But I need to get on Joe Cool's level with his ability to interact with people. But now I'm going to critique this idea of going back to the land in mass. Obviously, smaller groups are doing this, but I think my very existence disproves these notions because there's nowhere for me to go as far as this is all. And I'm not asking for this. I'm not putting this out there in order to receive it back. I'm pointing out that for some reason it's an impossibility. And I think part of that is because this is the nightmare dystopian beast realm. It's a literal hell. So this is part of me living in this hell is that I lived in the streets for 6 straight years, a very ascetic Spartan lifestyle. All I'll need is some electricity, some air conditioning, some heat, and 4 walls and a roof. Okay. I don't even really need running water. Okay. And access to food, and I can get my own money to feed myself. I can figure that out no matter what. Right. But why is this impossible? Meanwhile, when I was on the West Coast, and since COVID, since the fake pandemic, I don't even think it's an option to go to the West Coast anymore. When I was bebopping all around the West Coast, I met many people and I lived in many pseudo communal environments where if my illness had fully expressed while I was living that way, those people would take care of me in some way. Okay. There would be some sort of team effort where, okay, yeah, we've got this, there's this building there's this outbuilding on such and such's property. And yeah, we can run an extension cord out there and, Benton's got enough money. I can buy a heater and figure out some kind of little wood stove situation. Like this should not be insurmountable, but in these communities, and I'm not being critical of the listener. I'm saying, because believe me, I understand what you guys are up against with the isolation and there's a reason why none of my family members are able to provide these things for me. But by the way, it's not their deal. And I would never, foist myself upon my family to their own detriment. And it seems like, we've seen the social isolation in the United States has progressed to the point where, my mom lives in a house. Thank God, by the way, she lives in a nice house with her husband, who's not my father, and they have just enough physical space for themselves. Now, hypothetically, I could just go live in their garage, except they also use that as a living space in some ways. He goes out there and smokes cigarettes, and my mom might go out there and listen to some music here and there. Right. My dad has an apartment where I could go hang out with him, except he now has a girlfriend who stays the night with him every night. My boomer 68-year-old dad. Right. Which I do find this ridiculous on some way. And I do want to talk about the father stuff. If anybody was over on Paul and Slave's broadcast yesterday, I chimed in briefly about some of the I think I brought some new ideas with the father issues, the boomer dad issues, as it were. What's up, Lube Ass? Good to see you, sir. No, I'm going to get to that, Kim. And in fact, I may just break that down later. I'm going to have to take a break. My meal times have gotten a little messed up today. I'm starting to sleep in later in the morning, so my meal times are off. So I'm actually going to have to take a break and eat here later. So I may regroup and I may just play parts of it and respond to it. Good stuff, by the way. Very well done, sir. I plugged it over here earlier. If folks want to go check that out. But can we all please, I mean, just for the last time, can we just accept Benton's going to be dead in some point in the near future? I'm okay with it. In some ways, I've kind of asked for it because now I get to live an even more ascetic style of living. And, at some point, I may very well just be wandering around on foot with almost nothing because I'll weigh 100 pounds and I won't be able to carry much of anything. But when I was living in the streets, carrying a gigantic backpack everywhere, and the backpack was as big as me, but just without legs, right? This gigantic backpack. I fantasized about just living the same lifestyle, but with almost no possessions. Like, right. The what some of the monks talk about, just a bowl, like a beggar's bowl, essentially. And maybe like a garment, a garment that doubles as like a sleeping bag. Right. Come on. Yeah, Carl, am I bringing you down? But but this is why, by the way, Rob, this is why I noted from day one, I said, okay, this is inverted world and nothing is what it claims to be. The one thing that is what it purports to be is the truth community. And I coined the phrase so-called truth community. I don't know if you know that. I may not have been the first one to say it, but I popularized that saying literally. And, back to the CBO stuff, we are the OGs of this in some ways. And not even me, Drew, EBT, and Toilet Bowl Earth. And they're far too humble to tell you that. See, I'm not. And they're way ahead of me on a lot of this stuff, especially the conspiracy stuff. But here's the thing is, how can it be a so-called truth community? Your boy's going to be dead in the very near future. But I have to pretend like that's not the case for you. Oh, to suit your feelings, by the way, and not you, the listener, necessarily, but to suit part of the audience's feelings. I have to pretend and I have to make it seem like it's something other than what it is. This is what it is. But again, now we're back to the problem solving. Oh, how can we change Benton's situation to where now he's not on death's door? You can't. You don't have that power, and it's not your concern. It's not appropriate. Okay. But now what people could do is somebody could say, yes, I have a shack in my backyard or on some piece of property, and we'll run you an extension cord and you can go out there and broadcast. And we'll just leave Benton to figure out how to get his own food, which he will do. Why? Because when I lived in the streets with nothing, I was always able to feed myself. I will figure it the fuck out. But see, what people could do, they're not doing. What they can do that doesn't help, they're more than willing to do. Oh, let's solve his problems and let's type some words into a chat across the metaverse. That's why it annoys me, because that means fuck all. You cannot remove the scar tissue from my pancreas by typing words into a text chat in the metaverse. It ain't possible. Okay. Now, even if I have pancreatic cancer, and even if it could go into remission, which is certainly possible, I still can't absorb the nutrients and the calories. So I still can't maintain my body weight over time. Right? So what, we're going to live 20, I'm going to live 20 years weighing 100 pounds? I don't think so. Probably not going to happen. Right? No, this is real, man. This is real, Carl. But now we get into the repression. And I've asserted that repression is always harmful to the individual. The healthiest thing to do is just face it head on and to just say, yeah, this is what it is. My internet friend that I like to listen to on his broadcast is dying and nobody can do anything about it. Okay. And in some ways, my own past actions made it much worse. Me choosing to eat 5,500 calories minimum a day for 4 straight years. So because I wanted to feed my ego and get up to 195 pounds and be able to strut and swagger around and throw my weight around. The fact that I did that, right, that didn't cause my problems, but it certainly made them much worse than they otherwise would be. So my me knowing intellectually that my body cannot handle high amounts of alcohol and then choosing to drink high amounts of alcohol, that certainly contributed to where I am now. It didn't cause the problems. See, genetically, I have some genetic factors. I'm pretty sure my dad's mom had some similar issues. You know, that's not the complete picture, but it's part of it. See, it's part of it. And this Quantum Epic, by the way, saying that talking about Wes Watson and saying she doesn't like muscular guys, that's ridiculous, because as somebody who put on a significant amount of size, it's never a negative. And if you took the 165-pound version of Benton, and I'm exactly the same, and then you put the 195-pound version right next to him, literally nobody prefers the 165-pound version. That's not a thing, Quantum Epic. But when you ask a lady about men and attraction, you're accessing her logic, and that is not what makes the decisions. She does not decide from her brain. See, I did an entire podcast about that about 11 or 12 years ago. It was called Upper Hand Dating, Get the Upper Hand. Indeed. That was a less evolved version of Benton. I find most of that to be ridiculous, but I've studied it extensively. I know how it works. Why would you even ask a lady about those things? Just watch what they respond to. And as somebody who put on a significant amount of muscle, I can tell you nobody responds negatively to it, ever. It's not a detriment. It's only ever a benefit. It's just like, yeah, I'm 5'10". I would love to be 6'4". Yeah, there's advantages to being 5'10". I fit perfectly in an airplane seat, but I'd still, given the option, I would be 6'4". Well, there you go. Well, you may have a point. You may have a point. But part of the time I need to talk about, sometimes I need to get what I need to get, right? When we talk about our house, whose house, our house, get in where you fit in. Sometimes this is what I need, is to get this off my chest. Yeah, there you go, Rusty. No, I'm not conforming to doom. This is what's happening. No, this is what's happening. And here's where the delusion and denial comes in, Carl. See, when we were 6 months into the fake pandemic, everybody went doomer. And at a certain point, see, they tried to resist me, my doomerism, and they laughed at me and mocked me for being a doomer. But eventually people just had to realize, because I was like, look, man, 9 months in, a year in, I'm like, look, if you're not full doomer at this point, I think you're out of your fucking mind. But see, now that most of it's, quote, gone away, this hell realm exposed itself for what it was, to the point that nobody could deny just exactly how hellish and nightmarish this is. Oh, but Benton's a doomer. See, no, you're delusional and in denial. I'm not a doomer. You're delusional and in denial, because I have to live in the reality as fully as I'm able to in order to maintain my sanity. I'll go fucking crazy if I go off into the realm of delusion and denial. See, a big part of that living in the streets for 6 straight years was I was getting my mentality as tightened up as I possibly could. Okay. And that's why I so easily spot the errors in some of these fools' thinking, because part of tightening up my thought processes was I had to just ruthlessly interrogate all of my thought processes. And that doesn't even address the deprogramming, because I was raised in a literal mind control cult. Okay, that was also going on. I was so confused, I literally didn't know what was my personality versus what was the cult programming. Couldn't tell the difference. It was just like all one thing. I literally thought I was like extremely extroverted. It's the opposite. Yeah, it's crazy. But again, I would challenge the listener. Why does your brain immediately go into problem solving? Because mine does it too. But I've worked with myself enough, by the way, self-realization, self-actualization, self-growth, meditation, introspection. When somebody's telling me their problems and my brain goes to problem solving, I don't act on the problem solving. I just observe, okay, that's my brain trying to solve a problem, which really it's very self-centered, because what's motivating you to try to fix me is what I would say. Oh, it's because of you, because you're probably experiencing something that you don't want to experience, which, by the way, has absolutely nothing to do with me. That's none of my concern. It has nothing to do with me how any person reacts or feels about me and my plight. It has nothing to do with it. Okay. And by the way, what's brought me to this point, this partially is why I am who I am, that all of these things have occurred. Okay. I don't view it as a bad thing. Meanwhile, this is not my home. I'm not from this hell realm, and I'm not staying in this hell realm. I'm hoping not to come back to this hell realm. And the fact is, most of you haven't faced your own mortality and accepted it. Most of you have not accepted that, yeah, you're dying too. You're dying too. And look at the age we are now, by the way. It's not even about us anymore. It's about the youth, as it necessarily always is. Your youth is over. It's gone, never to return, at least in this incarnation. But, oh, I get told by the old folks, oh, you're still young. No, I'm 47. You know who determines what youth is? The youth. Go ask a young person, hey, what do you consider old? They'll tell you about 30. Okay. No person who's actually young thinks 47 is young. It's just not a thing. Meanwhile, there's nothing that this society prizes more highly than youth. Well, if everybody's young, then youth has no value. See, it has to be limited to the people who actually possess it. Otherwise, it has no value. If I'm also young, then it means nothing to be young. Now, people certainly can behave very immaturely and mimic behavior, right? Mimic behavior of the youth, such that women my age behave as if they're in their 20s. And males do too, increasingly. But see, I'm a harsh critic. Nobody notices when I'm not being a harsh critic. It's just like, oh my God, where'd this come from? This came out of left field. No, this is my reality every day. I just rarely inflict it upon the audience, right? Because I know that day in and day out, it's just too much. And by the way, this is a big reason why people do go into the repression, why people do go into the delusion, why people do go into the denial, because to actually face this realm as it is on its own terms, it's too disorienting. Who wants to wake up in the morning and realize just exactly what it is that we're faced with individually, what we're living in individually? And I don't even believe in a we, right? But I think I disproved this notion of, oh, well, people are going to go back to the land and organize and have communities. Okay, why isn't there somewhere for me to go? Because meanwhile, I can still contribute. There's all kinds of things I can do, even in my limitation. But there's literally nowhere for me to go. Not within these so-called truth communities. Now, again, if it was still pre-pandemic world, yeah, I could fuck off to the West Coast and go back to, I am half a hippie on some level, and just go back to living with the hippies. Hippies annoy the fuck out of me, though, by the way. But yeah, I could just go back to that. They'll at least take care of me to some degree. You folks won't. And I don't mean you, the listener. I'm talking about the truthers. Truthers ain't going to take care of me. They ain't going to do nothing for me, which is fine, by the way, because I'm probably not going to do nothing for y'all either. But I'll come on this broadcast and talk to you, right? Why, though? Because I like to talk. And I know I have valuable ideas, and this is part of my purpose. This is part of my service in some ways. But by the way, this broadcast has no value. There's no value to this for the listener. I'll go away, and then I'll just move on to something else, which is fine. But I'm not doing this broadcast out of any notion of I'm going to get something out of it as far as a way to make a living. Now, eventually, I may have to figure out how to make my living online, but that's for me to figure out, right? Because of the social isolation. And, no man is an island, the Thomas Merton book, which I've read, which, by the way, a famous Trappist monk, Thomas Merton. But I am an island. Why is it left to me to do all these things? So it's like when Drew's telling me, hey, man, you got to do these different style of titles to your videos, to bring people in, right? But it's like, well, wait a minute. Why doesn't the person who knows how to make the titles, why don't they come up to my level of broadcasting and an ability to discourse and hold an audience, right? Oh, but it's up to me, who has the ability to do all of these things. I need to also go learn how to make titles to videos. See, so now I'm an island, and I'm tasked with doing all of it. Well, I might just rather just fuck off and go wander around on foot and grow that way, right? And this is not a team effort. This is not a team sport. But humans, we're set up to socialize. That's what we're set up for. So we, I don't even mean we. It's very easy for humans to get trapped into this idea of, okay, form like Voltron and then go do something. Except there's no forming. I don't see any forming like Voltron. It hasn't happened. Okay. And again, I'm not really even talking about this broadcast or this audience. This is a self-selecting audience to some degree. Like, I recognize that. I don't want or expect anything out of the people who come here. You're doing your part by being here. I mean, and I literally mean that. If you're typing into that chat, you're doing your part. If you're listening to the words coming out of my mouth, you're doing your part. But I'm talking about in the grand scheme of things. There is no truth community in the physical realm. It does not exist. You cannot point to it and say, "Oh, there it is over there." It's ethereal. It's an idea. Okay. It does not exist in the physical realm. Period. Now you can say, "Oh, sure it does," and people even try to tell me. See, oh, by the way, blame the perceived victim. Dick even tried to hint around. Oh, well, no, people have organized, and it does exist physically. You just don't know about it. As if, okay, well, if I was one of the cool kids, and if I said the right words to the right people in the right place at the right time, then I guess I would get blessed in to the splinter cell, to one of the splinter cells, right? No, that's fantasy. That's mind control. That's brainwashing. That's programming. That's bullshit nonsense. It don't exist. Now, I understand some people are homesteading and living off the land. That's fine. Yeah. Yeah. It's family by family as far as I can tell, which is fine. I'm glad you're doing it. It's not my function. Every man hath not the same office. I'm not here for that. I'm not here to grow. I'm not a farmer. I'm not here to grow vegetables. Now I can go before my health issues. I could go dig I could go till your land all day. I could be unskilled labor, and I have in fact worked the land. Believe it or not, I've worked the land. But then again, I've stood with the Mexicans outside the Home Depot for day labor numerous times, right? But that's all over with for me. I can't physically do any of that anymore. I probably can't even go back to truck driving. At this point, I've more or less lost all interest in it. Kind of just like how I lost all interest in junk food right about the time my body could no longer process it without becoming sick. Right about the time I, lost interest in consuming alcohol. Right about the time my body tapped out and said, "Well, we can't process this poison that you've been putting into us for so long," which it really wasn't even that long, actually. See, so now right about the time that I most likely can no longer physically stand up to truck driving, although I may be able to for a month or so here and there, right? Now I've pretty much completely lost interest in it. I don't think that's a coincidence. I think that's how it works, if you ask me. But I understand that the message can be difficult to receive. But then again, the truth hurts, right? As they say. So we're going to go into these so-called truth communities, and I mean the larger truth community. Let me be specific when I use these pronouns. So certain people are going to go into this and talk about these certain ideas, right? But then when the harsh truth presents itself, there's an aversion, there's a turning away, there's a repression, the truth we want. We don't want that truth, see? We want those other truths, but not that truth. This is Deathstream. Well, and that's, by the way, all of you. That's what this is. Born to die. The end is built into the beginning. And that's not me being a doomer. That's me saying something that's true. As soon as you came out of your mama, that's built in. This ain't forever. And again, I'm not from here. This is not my home. I even really identify with this place. Now, I'm just like the rest of you in that my psychology I am a product of this system psychologically, as much as I've, worked on controlling my own mind and programming my own mind, right? I am a human being. I fall into those patterns of thinking at times also, but I'm observing them as they're happening. See, I see them as they're happening. And that was the problem solving thing. I really figured that out back in the old when I was doing the podcast and learning all about dating and relationships, and that one of the major mistakes men make in their relations with women is the woman just wants to share and she's having an emotional experience, and the man immediately goes into problem solving because he's interpreting what she's saying as problems, right? Oh, well, we can solve this and just do that. And now she's frustrated because she thinks she's sharing feelings and he's giving advice, right? Meanwhile, when somebody's in an emotional state, your logic cannot penetrate somebody who's in a who's experiencing an excessive emotional state, right? It may as well be the Charlie Brown teacher voice, right? That's how unevolved. And I used to do this myself. I thought I was intelligent, and my woman would be trying to share on some sort of emotional level instead of observing her and being present in the moment. I'm just hearing the words and trying to say words to her to solve the problems. Meanwhile, she was smart enough she knows how to go into logic and solve problems. It's about the emotions in that moment. Well, thanks for listening. Let me get into the notes here. I think I pretty much hit all of it for the most part. Like I said, I did the broadcast in my head this morning, so. Well, and I definitely think what I just talked about as far as, nowhere to go, nothing to do, and all of this, I think it ties in with the end of my rant yesterday is nobody's going to do anything. Nobody is doing anything. And that's generally, again, I understand our brains immediately go to the exceptions, but if 85% of what I'm saying is true, if it's true for 85% of all situations, I don't think it's helpful to focus on the exceptions when we know there's always exceptions to everything, even that statement I just said. See, it's not helpful. So when I say no one is doing anything, do you really think I'm so dumb that I think it's 100% across the board that's a true statement? Or am I exaggerating for effect? See, effectively, no one is doing anything, meaning there's not enough people doing enough things for any fruit to be born, right? So if I'm talking about no one is doing anything, if we think about that as a tree, that tree hasn't grown large enough to bear fruit yet. There is no fruit. Okay. Now people have in their mind, they believe these things exist. They believe traditional family values exist and conservatism exists and in people, Christianity exists at the level of what it purports to be. And what I'm saying is show me. Show me. I don't see it. Where is it? If I can't find it in the physical realm, I have no choice but to assume it don't exist. But while again, understanding, yeah, there's little exceptions here and there, but it's so isolated, right? It's so isolated. I can't just go to it and say, here I am. I'm at the end of my journey here and I need to hang out with you guys and get in where I fit in. And, I'll just be over there in the fucking shack, run me an extension cord and, I'll do just enough. I'll share enough labor to maintain my 100-pound physical frame here. If you guys could help feed me, and I showed up with some Fiat or I showed up with some solar panels and some batteries, right? In an air conditioner and a heater. All I really need is the four walls and the roof. Hell, I guess I could just go build my own four walls and a roof somewhere, right? Right. Or pitch a tent. But then again, if I'm in a tent, I'm probably not going to be able to do these broadcasts. It's going to be too fucking hot. And I don't know that I could concentrate properly. I certainly wouldn't be able to get enough rest and sleep in the heat and the southern heat and humidity, right? But see, it's just left to me to do all of it, which is fine. I understand that that's what this is. And that's why I'm so resistant. That's why I reject these notions out of hand of, oh, well, people are going to come together. It's like, well, okay, if that's going to happen, why is it not yet happening? Oh, well, things haven't got bad enough. Oh, okay. Except they have, which basically disproves that anybody's actually going to get off their ass and do anything until a group of people show up at the same patch of dirt. It's all talk. Okay. And if people had shown up at a patch of dirt if enough groups of people had shown up at enough patches of dirt, I bet you by now somebody would have said, hey, there's a group of us on this patch of dirt. Here's the coordinates. Why don't you come over here? We got you. See? And I'm not even asking for that. And I might be like Mitchell. I know Mitchell on his live stream, some lady was offering him some sort of help, and he was just like, no, I'm good. Well, he's really not, but I might be the type. I'm way too independent. Yeah, I might just be like, no, thanks, but no thanks, right? But that is what this is, and I can't live in some fantasy world where there's just some pretend fantasy that it's actually something else. No, it's not. This is what it is, and I'm fine with it. Or I have no choice but to be fine with it. What's the alternative? I can't check out on purpose, right? I can't leave. I already tried, by the way. I thought I found a loophole with the drinking. Turns out that's not an option. I can't intentionally end the experience, right? That's also not an option. So here we are. Here we all are. Oh man. But yeah, I like what Kim's doing with the legal stuff. And in fact, that might be how if I'm every man's an island and I'm just got to do it myself. That may in fact be how I choose to make my living. In fact, the statute of limitations has not yet expired on my broken foot. Hypothetically, I could call up one of these injury lawyers and I might say, hey man, you don't have a lot of time, but just get what you can get since the clock is ticking, and take your cut. And then I bet I could get 20 grand out of this broken foot. I might just do that and live on that long enough to let these oppressor thugs violate me to the point where I can then go to the courts and maybe that'll be my way to make a living. And I'll say this, and when Kim was doing his live, somebody's typing into the chat, oh, well, it's not, more or less implying that it's not right to sue and receive a settlement from the taxpayers because, oh, well, it was the cops that did all of this. No, who employed the cops? The taxpayers. Don't we say, don't these, especially the auditors, love to say, you work for us? See, who hired these people? Who pays their salaries? Apparently, it's the taxpayer. So the taxpayer hires people, and those people violate me. Who's liable? Especially with this legal system where apparently the cop, it's very difficult to hold the individual cop liable, although apparently that is possible. You're trying to tell me that the people who employ and pay these people shouldn't have to pay the price for those people's actions? That's bullshit. That's exactly who should have to pay. And if those taxpayers are dumb enough to repeatedly employ people who violate me or violate Kim, so much so that that the legal system awards damages, or the county or the city says, well, man, we better go ahead and settle this and cut a check, because if this thing goes to trial, this guy we might end up owing this guy millions. Let's just we'll give him 250 or 100,000 or whatever and just make it go away. Well, if that happens once or twice a year for 10 years, who do you blame? We're going to blame the jackbooted oppressor thug, or we're going to blame the person who hired them and put them on the chessboard? Yeah, who should be liable? I would say the taxpayer should be liable. Maybe eventually they'll get tired of paying out all that money, but meanwhile, the American taxpayer has no problem just handing free money to Amazon and Walmart and big, large financial institutions. So why would the taxpayer have a problem with somebody getting food stamps or a COVID stimulus check or a settlement? Where's my bailout, right? That was the joke back in 08, 09. Where's my bailout? See, but see, the same person who has absolutely no problem with all of these large what they call our corporations, right? I don't have a corporation. Our corporations. They have no problem with all these big corporations getting all the taxpayer money. That's no problem. Oh, but you think Kim thinks he's going to get 100 grand? No. That's morally wrong. See, we're holding Kim to a standard that we won't hold the rest of it to. Why? Because we know the corporation is morally bankrupt. It's as morally bankrupt as it is fiscally bankrupt. We know that on some level. We know that holding the the corporation to account to do better, that's a non-starter. That's not going to happen. But Kim is a human being who we might actually be able to appeal to his humanity and his sense of duty, honor, and integrity, see, and trick him out of his position, to borrow a phrase from Paul Enslaved. See, do you see what is happening here? And that's not Benton creating that. Please don't kill the messenger. Okay, I don't need killing. But that's what's going on here. And how I choose to face that or not face it doesn't create it. It's not me being a doomer. It's me, in order to maintain my sanity day in and day out, facing what is. And I would also refer that as truth. That is the truth of what's happening here. And I didn't make it that way, at least not entirely. Now, I do have to accept that probably I am doing that on some level. And we're all doing that on some level. And that our creative force never lies dormant. And in fact, this beast system that we are all living in, and that we are all, our psychology is products of this beast system. It's in fact what that is that's the result of totaling up everybody's creative output moment to moment to moment. If enough people just stopped creating a nightmare dystopian hell realm, guess what? It would vanish overnight. But as it is, if you think you're going to go out here and change this system and reform this system, well, guess what? Until the people reform, until the people change themselves, the same people will just create it again. See? Now, this is why I say there's no such thing as common sense, because that's completely obvious to me. It doesn't seem to be obvious to other people. Right? No, until the people grow and change and evolve their consciousness, even if this thing went away tomorrow, the people who are here now would just make it over again over time. Or if enough of the populace evolved spiritually, this would literally just cease to exist. And it's like when the Jack Buddha Depressor Thug banged on my door yesterday. And and this is what Paul's talking about with the Tao or the middle path. I had absolutely no emotional reaction to this whatsoever. I felt nothing. And I attempted to meet him on a human level. He refused. I don't have the ability, because of free will. I can't force him into having a human interaction with me. But he can't force me into licking his boots. See, he thinks he's going to go bang on a motel. You know, it's mostly po folks living in this motel, and I am a man of the people. I am that on some level. He thinks he's going to bang on this door, and now the slaves are going to jump in line. Well, I don't have a criminal record, sir. I'm not a criminal. I haven't done anything wrong according to the legal system. Therefore, I'm not under his boot. I'm not under his authority at that case. Now, I don't need to explain that to him. All I do is just behave as if those things are true, because they are. And guess what? He just left. Guy just left. Now, I was annoyed, and I was having a bad day, and annoyed and frustrated. So I can't say I didn't feel anything about the situation that I wasn't already feeling, I should say. Right? But this what this is. But the Constitution and freedom. You're out of your fucking mind. This is a prison camp, and anytime this system wants to, it'll dispatch a Jack Buddha Depressor Thug to bang on this door. And I got the story later of why the cops showed up here. Apparently, not too long ago, the fucking SWAT team showed up out here, bashed the fucking door in, arrested a bunch of people. The SWAT team was here with ARs, fucking telling everybody in sight to get on the ground. Right? Treated the people here like literal fucking chattel slaves. Okay. Now, it's not for me to go out here and reform that. It's not for me to go out here and make that change for the better. It's for me to not pretend like it's something other than what it is, because to do so is to live in a delusional state, in a state of denial, and to repress the things that I know to be true, because my conscious mind perfectly decodes all symbolism. See, subconsciously, we all know what this is. Subconsciously, we all know what's going on. See? So that creates a schism in my psychology, in my mentals, in my conscious mind. if I'm always going around repressing. And see, I lived in, I'm an expert at repression, see, and a lot of us are. And that's how we cope with a lot of things. That's where all this PTSD and trauma comes from. Well, I refuse to repress. I ain't doing it. I will not repress. Once I discover something to be true, I'm accepting it for what it is. Because to do otherwise is repression. And repression is always harmful to the individual. Thanks for watching. I will probably be back later. I may be on OTW's broadcast. I need to go take care of myself. Thanks for being here. I'm grateful and appreciative as always. I guess I need to go out on a song, right? That's always a thing. Better do that. Oh, this is a good one. I like this one. Yeah, this will work. Yeah, they're running now. They're scared of my music choices now. I don't blame you though. I was pretty on the money with the music choices, but then I've kind of gone off the rails here of late, so I get it.
Why can't I walk down a street? Feel suggestion. Why can't I walk down a street? Feel suggestion. Is my body my only trait? In the eyes of men, in the eyes of men. Life does again. Let me wanna know again. Like your soul. There lays no reward in what you discover. You spent yourself, boy, watching me suffer. Suffer your words, suffer your eyes, suffer your hands, suffer your interpretation of what it is, of what it is, what it is, what it is, what it is to be a man. Life does again. Live it again. She does nothing to deserve it. He looks at her cause he wants to observe it. We sit back like they taught us. We keep quiet like they taught us. He wants to prove it. She does nothing to remove it. We don't want anyone to mind us. We play the roles that they assigned us. She does nothing to conceal it. He touches her cause he wants to feel it. We blame her for being there. We are all here.
I never thought too hard on dying before. I never sucked on the dying. I never licked the side of dying before. And now I'm feeling the dying. You got your hands over your ears. You got your mouth running on. You got your eyes looking for something that can never be found, like a reason. Good God, I don't need a reason. I never thought too hard on dying before. I never thought on the dying. I never held the hand of dying before. And now I'm feeling the dying. And you got to, and you got to, and you got to. Give me the shot. Give me the pill. Give me the cure. Now what you done to my world? I never thought too hard on dying before. I never thought on the dying. I never walked the side of dying before. And now I feel like and now I feel like under your skin. Come over your eyes.
your adversary. I'm not your reason to track and divide. It's long division. It's long division. It's long division. Track and divide.